In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make these really easy crochet maple leaf appliques. So I made these ones here with the solid color with a 4-ply worsted weight acrylic yarn, and this is Red Heart Super Saver yarn. And I thought it'd be fun to make the fall leaves when they have the color changes with the variegated yarns. So they have different colors in them because a lot of times when you see the leaves change color for the fall, they'll have more than one color in the leaves, and they're just very, very pretty to look at. These two were made with Karen Simply Soft yarn. These ones here were made from the same skein of yarn. It's a variegated yarn, that Karen Simply Soft yarn. In this one's a Red Heart Super Saver yarn, and this one is called Fall. So I thought it would be fun to make them with the variegated yarns as well. It's a solid colored yarns. And I'll leave links in the description box below for these yarns that I used to make my Maple Leaf Appliques. I want to go ahead and show you how to make these cute Maple Leaf Appliques. They're super easy to make. They only take 4 rounds to complete. And then I'll show you how to make one with this yarn. This is Red Heart Super Saver yarn, and the color is like a goldenrod, or kind of like a mustard yellow. Okay, so we're going to start with a magic ring. So to make a magic ring, you would start with the tail facing down towards your table surface, and then you wrap the yarn over your 2 fingers over the top, and then you wrap the yarn this way to make like a little X mark on top of your fingers, and then you take your crochet hook with the hook pointing down towards your fingers, and you're going to insert it underneath this strand here, and then you're going to grab that one in front of it and just pull it underneath. Then you're going to twist your crochet hook up until it sits right on the middle of that X mark. And then you're going to insert the hook underneath this strand here and then pull it through that ring to complete your magic ring. And then we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to work 12 double crochets into the center of the magic ring. And these chains here, they're not going to count as a stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do 12 double crochets into the center of the magic ring. Okay, so I have my 12 double crochets. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull the tail of the magic ring to close up that center circle. And then I'm going to insert my hook into that first double crochet that we did, into the top of the first double crochet, not into that chain one that we did. We're going to go ahead and insert it into the top of the first double crochet and join with a slip stitch. So that completes round 1. Okay, so for round 2, we're going to start off with a chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets into that stitch where we just joined when we finished round 1. Okay, so I did 2 double crochets into that stitch, and then I'm going to do 2 double crochets in every single stitch for this round, and when you finish round 2, you'll have 24 double crochets. Okay, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to that first double crochet that we did when we started the round. And that completes round 2. When you're done with round 2, you should have 24 double crochets. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert a stitch marker here into that stitch where I just joined. I'm just going to go ahead and use a piece of yarn as my stitch marker. Okay, and then into the next stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch. And then the next stitch, we're going to do 1 single crochet. And then we're going to skip 1 stitch. And then the next stitch, after we skip a stitch, we're going to do 5 double crochets all into the same stitch. Okay, so we did 5 double crochets all into the same stitch. And then we're going to skip a stitch. And then into the next stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. And then we're going to skip 1 stitch, and then in the next stitch after we skip 1, we're going to do 5 double crochets all into the same stitch. Okay, and then we're going to skip a stitch and then single crochet into the next one, and then skip a stitch. And we're going to do 5 double crochets into the next stitch after we skip one. So this stitch is going to have 5 double crochets all into the same stitch. And then we're going to skip one stitch, and then into the next stitch we're going to do a single crochet, and then we'll skip a stitch, and then we'll do 5 double crochets into the next stitch. So this next stitch here, 5 double crochets all into the same stitch. That's 4, 5. Okay, so we did 5 double crochets. Now we're going to skip a stitch, and then the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and then skip a stitch, and then 5 double crochets into the next stitch. Okay, so that was 5 double crochets into the same stitch, and then we're going to skip a stitch, and then a single crochet into the next stitch. And then into this next stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch. Then we're going to work our stem for our leaf. So we're going to do 9 chains. Okay, so I did 9 chains. So now what we're going to do is we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook. We're going to skip 1 chain, and then into the next chain, which is the second chain from the hook, we're going to do a single crochet. And then we're going to do 1 slip stitch in the remaining chains, working our way back up the chains towards the leaf. So we're going to do 1 slip stitch in the next 7 chains. Okay, and then here's where that stitch marker is. From when we began round 3, we're going to do a slip stitch into that stitch. And that completes the stem for our leaf. So that's what it looks like so far. So I'm going to go ahead and take my stitch marker out now. Okay, so for round 4, if you look at the leaf here, there's 5 points for our leaf. These 2 points are going to be the same, and then these 2 points will be the same. So for these, each of these points are going to be slightly different, because if you look at a maple leaf, you'll notice that these points here are always a little bit smaller than these ones, and then this one's always a little bit taller. So that's why there's some slight differences in the sizes. So this will match this side, this will match this side, and then this one will be a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I mean in just a moment. Okay, and then we're going to skip this stitch here, and then we're going to do a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then the next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. I'll go ahead and show you how to do a half double crochet in case you're new to crocheting and you haven't done a half double crochet yet. So what we're going to do a half double crochet is you do a yarn over, and then you insert it into the stitch. Then you yarn over and pull up a loop, and then you will have 3 loops on your hook. And then you yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we're going to do 4 stitches into this next stitch with a picot stitch in the middle. So we're going to do a half double crochet into that stitch, and then a double crochet, and then a picot stitch. So we're going to chain 3, and then we're going to insert a hook into that first chain and do a slip stitch, and then we're going to do a double crochet back into that same stitch, then another half double crochet into that same stitch. So to recap what we just did here, we did a half double crochet, a double crochet, a picot stitch, which is chain 3, and then a slip stitch into the first chain, a double crochet and a half double crochet all into the same stitch. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. And then we're going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch. And then now we're going to work on the second point of our leaf. So then what we're going to do is we're going to do a single crochet into the next stitch, and then a half double crochet into the next one. And then the next stitch, we're going to do 2 double crochets. And then we're going to do a picot stitch again. We're going to chain 3. And then we're going to insert our hook into the first chain to complete our picot stitch. And then, now I do want to mention here that you can do a picot stitch a couple of ways. You can do it the way I just showed you here, where we did a chain 3 and then a slip stitch into the first chain. Now, you can do it a different way. Let me show you. It's just a matter of preference. So I'm going to go ahead and show you again. You chain 3, and then you can slip stitch into the chain, and then it will look like this. Or sometimes what you can do, instead of inserting it into the chain to do your slip stitch, you insert your hook here in this strand here, and then this one, just like that, and then do a slip stitch. So you can do your picot stitches like that. Now when you do it that way, you're going to see there's a slight difference where this one is a little bit more pointed and this one is a little bit more rounded. So it's just a matter of what you're going for. For this leaf, I thought it looked better with the picot stitch this way since it was pointed. That's how I wanted it to be. I like the way it looked for this particular leaf applique because when you look at a maple leaf, it doesn't really have like a little curve here. It's more pointed. Some projects, it would look nicer this way. It just depends what look you're going for. So sometimes I will do it this way depending on, what I'm making. So for this, I just wanted to show you the 2 different ways and explain the reasoning behind why I did it this way, because I know some people definitely like to do it this way and then others will do it this way. But really I do use both methods because it just depends on what I'm making or what look I'm going for. But for this leaf, I liked it to be a little bit more pointed. So you can definitely do it this way. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and unravel that a little bit because I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook into the first chain and then do a slip stitch. And then we'll do 2 more double crochets into that same stitch. Into this stitch, we did 4 stitches with a picot stitch in the center. So you can see that this point was slightly different than this one, because this one we did a half double crochet, a double crochet, a picot stitch, a double crochet, and a half double crochet. And then this one, I did 2 double crochets, a picot stitch, and 2 double crochets. Because if you look at a maple leaf, this point is always a little bit smaller than this one. So it is a subtle difference, but it's a little bit larger by just changing it from a half double crochet to a double crochet. And then we're going to do a half double crochet into the next stitch, and then a single crochet into the next one. And that completes the second point of our maple leaf. And then we're going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch. And then we're going to do a single crochet into the next stitch. In this next stitch, half double crochet. And then this next stitch is going to be a little different than this point, because this one had 2 double crochets, a picot stitch, and 2 double crochets. This point we're going to do a double crochet, a treble crochet, a picot stitch, another treble crochet, and a double crochet into the same stitch. So you can see it's just a little bit taller than this last one here. So now I call it a treble stitch, but sometimes you'll hear it called a triple stitch. They are the same. So let me show you. We just did a half double crochet. Okay, so I'm going to show you here this next stitch. We're going to do 4 stitches with a picot stitch in the center. So we're going to start with a double crochet, and then we're going to do the treble or triple crochet into the same stitch. So to do that, you would wrap your yarn 2 times and then insert your hook into the stitch, and then we're going to pull up a loop, and then you'll have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to do a yarn over and pull through 2 loops and leaving these 2 still on the hook. So now you'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and then we're going to pull through 2 loops, leaving this last one still on the hook. and then we'll have 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to do a yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops to complete our treble crochet. And then we're going to chain 3 to work our picot stitch. Then we'll do a slip stitch into that first chain. There's our picot stitch at the top. And then we're going to do another treble crochet into the same stitch. Wrap the yarn twice, insert it into the stitch, and then pull up a loop, and then you yarn over and pull through 2 loops at a time to complete your treble crochet. And then we're going to do a double crochet into that same stitch. Okay, so that completes the 3rd point of our maple leaf, and you can see that it's a little bit taller than this one, and that's what you want, because if you look at a maple leaf, this one's always a little bit taller than the rest of them. And then into the next stitch, we're going to work a single crochet, and then the next stitch we'll do a slip stitch. Okay, so now for the 4th point, we're going to start off after the slip stitch. We're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do a half double crochet in the next stitch, and then this next stitch will have 4 stitches with a picot stitch in the center. So in this stitch we'll do 2 double crochets into the same stitch, and then we're going to chain 3, and then we'll do a slip stitch into the first chain, and then we'll do 2 more double crochets into that same stitch. So this stitch, 2 double crochets, chain 3, then a slip stitch into the first chain of the chain 3 for the picot stitch, and then 2 more double crochets into the same stitch. And then the next stitch we'll do a half double crochet. Next stitch we'll have a single crochet, and then we'll do a slip stitch into the next stitch. And that completes the 4th point of our leaf. So this one matches this one here, because it had 2 double crochets, a picot, and 2 double crochets. Now we're going to work on the 5th point of our leaf. We just did a slip stitch, so now the next stitch will have a single crochet, and then the next stitch we'll do 1 half double crochet, and then into this stitch we're going to work 4 stitches with a picot stitch in the center. So this stitch we'll start with a half double crochet, and then we'll do a double crochet into the same stitch, and then we'll chain 3, and then we're going to do a slip stitch into that first chain, and then into the same stitch we're going to work a double crochet and a half double crochet into the same stitch. So this stitch had 4 stitches with a picot stitch in the center. We did a half double crochet, a double crochet, picot stitch, double crochet, and another half double crochet, all into the same stitch. That completes the 5th point of our leaf. And then we're going to do a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then we'll do a slip stitch into the next stitch. Okay, and then that completes the 5th point of our leaf. And then all we need to do is cut the yarn and fasten off. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that through, give it a tug to fasten off. And then I'm going to go ahead and weave in the ends. That completes our Maple Leaf Applique. I hope that you enjoyed watching the tutorial today. I want to thank you for watching and have a great day.